Gender statistics is not a statistical field. What is special about it? Why don't you deal with more serious stuff?
Nowadays, women have the same opportunities as men. So where's the problem?
All our data are sex disaggregated anyway. What's the problem?
The role of women is not an issue in our country. We have resource constraints and need to concentrate on other more relevant areas.
Business statistics does not relate to gender.
We do not want to overburden the respondents.
There's no space.
Gender statistics is a field that cuts across all areas of statistics. It's about identifying, producing, disseminating and analysing statistics to understand how gender issues affect individuals and society. It is a way to show how gender differences can affect the economic and social development of societies. Sex is not the same as gender. However, the two are often confused. Sometimes the simple binary categories of sex, male and female, and gender, masculine and feminine, are treated as if they were the same thing, but they are not. Sex is a reference to the relatively fixed biological basis of the differentiation of men and women. Gender is a reference to the socially constructed differences between sexes. Gender differences may be changed. Sex differences are fixed and unchangeable. Gender statistics is not about women only, but about the role of both women and men in society. It's about making better statistics. In order to study the participation of people in the labour force, we could look, for example, at the data collected in the UK in 2005 on employment rates. As the graph shows, men have a higher employment rate than women, but the person's sex does not have a major impact on the employment status of people in the UK. The difference in the employment rates of women and men is only about 8%. However, if data are further disaggregated and the gender dimension is further analysed, the data reveal a different situation. For women and men who do not have dependent children, there is no difference at all across the two sexes. For the population group with dependent children, the difference between employment for women and men increases to 22%. The percentage of women who are employed drops to 68%, and the percentage of men employed rises to 90%. The age of dependent children produces an even higher difference between women and men. Women with at least one dependent child less than 5 years old have an employment rate of 55%, while men in the same circumstances have a rate of 91%, almost double that of women. The age of the youngest child greatly affects the employment rate of the mother, which varies from 55% for women with smaller children to 79% for women whose youngest child is 16 to 19 years old. For men, the age of children has no impact on their employment rate, which is around 90%, regardless of the age of the children. This suggests that women are more likely than men to leave employment when they have children and remain out of the labour force to take care of their offspring. But even when women participate in the labour force, the way they participate can be different from men. For example, in Germany in 2005, over half of the employed women with children worked part-time, while only 5% of employed men with children did so. The proportion of men working part-time is independent of the number of children, while the proportion of women working part-time increases with the number of children. Another example of how the gender perspective can improve the understanding of labour markets is given by the data collected in Norway from 2004 to 2005. In Norway, there was a balanced participation of women and men in the labour force. Women made up 47% of the workforce. However, only 29% of women were managers. In the case of middle managers, 32% were women, but for executive managers, the figure was 23%. The public sector is dominated by women. 2 out of 3 public employees are women. On the surface, the public sector appears more woman-friendly than the private sector. The percentage of women managers in the public sector is 44%, compared with 25% in the private sector. However, this is due only to the larger number of women engaged in the public sector. A closer look at the percentage of managers among women reveals that a woman is twice as likely to become a manager once she is in the private sector. 6% of women employees in the private sector are managers, compared to 3% in the public sector. The importance of gender is not limited to labour statistics, but should be included in all fields. Policymakers need to work with statisticians to identify the areas where the social and economic realities of women and men are different and need to be addressed. Areas of major concern include poverty, education and training, health, families and households, violence, armed conflict, economy, power and decision-making, human rights, the media, transport, sport and leisure, reproduction, sexuality, and the environment. The importance of gender statistics was also recognized at the Fourth World Conference on Women held in Beijing in 1995. The program of action emerging from this conference became the foundation for work on gender issues, which continues to this day. The unanimous adoption of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action by representatives from 189 countries gave the world a new comprehensive plan of action to enhance the social, economic and political empowerment of women. What does all this mean for the production of gender statistics? The production of adequate gender statistics is of concern to the entire official statistical system, as well as to different statistical sources and fields. It also has implications for the development and improvement of concepts, definitions, classifications, and methods. All data related to individuals must be produced and disseminated in a sex-disaggregated form. It is important to remember that individual data are not only collected in the social and demographic fields. Entities such as enterprises can also have a gender dimension because they can be characterized by the individuals who manage, control, or work in such entities. This means that gender statistics are equally relevant in social and demographic statistics, as well as business, agriculture, transport, ICT, and other statistical sets. The process of making gender visible in areas where it was previously thought to be irrelevant lies at the heart of gender statistics. There are many questionable assumptions in traditional analyses. These include assuming that gender is not relevant because other social dynamics are more important, assuming that women's interests are always closely aligned with those of their husbands, and assuming that a particular category of person is always male or female. The development of gender statistics creates the evidence base that enables such assumptions to be tested, and better analyses and policies can then be developed. This graph shows an example of using business statistics to study the impact of the sex of the entrepreneur in the 3-year survival rate of new businesses. In every country, the percentage of businesses started by women is almost half that of businesses started by men. To understand why countries experience this gender difference, more statistics will need to be produced. This data, collected in 2004 in the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia, shows that for all age groups, men make significantly higher regular use of computers and the internet than do women. While the disaggregation of statistics by sex is a vital first step, the development of a body of gender statistics requires additionally the development of new areas where there is a need to have a better understanding of the disparities between women and men. Examples of areas include use of time, gender-based violence, gender attitudes, and the reconciliation of family life and work. The graph shows some of the results obtained by a time use survey carried out in Kazakhstan in 2003. These data provide a picture of the different roles women and men play in daily life. Women predominantly spend their time performing traditional female activities such as cooking, washing, and taking care of children, while men dedicate more hours than women to leisure time. Time use data are a very rich source of information, not only for analysing the participation of women and men in daily life, but also for measuring other important aspects, such as the invisible part of the economy which needs to be integrated into a government's decision-making, the amount of caregiving work done, and the activities people perform that impact health status, time spent on education and training, and social networks. Only statistical information that is actually utilised ends up being useful statistics. It should never be forgotten that the purpose of gender statistics is to provide information to support policy development and research, and to inform public debate in the media and elsewhere. Gender statistics are an important part of the evidence base needed to monitor and evaluate the effectiveness and efficiency of policy developments. They are part of the institutional mechanisms needed to develop gender equality policies. Many policies that appear to have little to do with gender equality are actually affected in an indirect way by aspects of gender relations. It is often necessary to investigate the gender aspect of a policy, even if it is not overtly articulated in a way that draws attention to gender relations. Unless there is a specific focus on gender statistics, there is a danger that issues of importance will be missed from the knowledge base. It is important to make gender visible in the evidence base supporting policy development. If you are still not convinced that gender is an important issue to be addressed in statistics, have a look at the following examples. The share of women and men chiefs of executive boards of the 50 top firms publicly quoted on the National Stock Exchange in selected European countries in 2003. The share of women and men members of national parliament in selected countries in 2006. The share of women and men in decision-making and influential positions in the Czech Republic. And the share of women and men in decision-making and influential positions in Serbia.